Welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, the channel that looks to answer exactly those. I'm Rebecca Felgate, and I can't pretend that I have never secretly longed to be the Doctor's next companion, traveling through time and space, experiencing different eras and planets with the Doctor. The only problem is, Doctor Who isn't real. A man who travels through time at the swirl of a TARDIS, a wild scenario only dreamt up by the best scriptwriters. Or is it? Of course, let's state the obvious and say that we are already traveling in time. Time is fluid. It does not stand still. For you to stand still is still for you to travel in time. The seconds will tick, the hours will go by, time will move forward around you. Obviously, what the question is inferring is it possible for a person to move forward or backward in time faster than the ticking of a clock? This is where things get a touch more complicated. We can time travel, but it isn't as romantic in real life as in the movies, or indeed Doctor Who. As Einstein's theory of special relativity says, the laws of physics are the same for all non-accelerating observers, and that the speed of light in a vacuum was independent of the motion of all observers. To put it simply, if you're able to travel something approaching the speed of light or faster, you will be able to travel forwards in time. The closer something moves to the speed of light, the slower the time would move for that object, although if they had a watch on them, they would show the same Earth seconds. We have already experienced time travel on a minute scale. Space shuttles travel at such a speed that when they return to Earth, the astronauts are 0.001 second younger than they were had they been on the Earth. This is called time dilation. Similarly, satellites that orbit the Earth are traveling so fast that they experience a 7 microsecond delay every day. To put this into context, a space shuttle, for example, is traveling at around 7,500 miles per hour. The speed of light is 6.702 times 10 to the power of 8 miles per hour, or 186,000 miles per second. The chance of us reaching a suitable speed to actually travel a significant time into the future at the moment is slim. Projecting ourselves at the speed of light would not be sustainable even if it was possible. Say you were traveling for 5 years, on your return, 50 Earth years would have passed. This is once again because of time dilation. Time moves slower for you than it does on Earth when you travel at such speeds. This is something that is quite interestingly explored in Interstellar. As far as what we know about the physics of the space-time continuum, traveling into the future is the only time travel possible, and that is only significantly measurable if we manage to break the light barrier. With all the information available to us at the moment, we cannot travel back in time. At this point, we can see the past having lived through it, but we cannot see the future. Conversely, however, some scientists believe that we could travel back in time if we were able to create a wormhole. The general theory of relativity and our current understanding of quantum gravity say that objects with an extremely high mass, like black holes, can warp time around them. If time can be bent, can it be folded back onto itself in what is known as a closed time-like curve, or CTC? If we could string together CTCs, we could create a wormhole, and if we could do that, then we would be able to travel forward and back in time. But to create a series of these CTCs, we would in theory need half of all of the energy and matter in the universe. Others speculate as to another side, so to speak, of a black hole. Some think traveling through a black hole will lead to an alternate reality, a different time to travel to. However, there is an issue here as to the point of the much debated singularity, which suggests a black hole ends in one singular point. AKA, there's nothing to travel to. You'll simply be sucked in until you are one mere atom. Perhaps for one moment we can move into a less mathematical and scientific approach to things. If we do one day find a way to travel back in time, where is everybody from the future? If we could travel in time, would we even be able to interact with ourselves? There is another way that we could, in theory, travel in time, except for us, it doesn't actually involve traveling at all. It involves staying very, very still. What am I talking about? Cryogenic freezing, that's what. Many current day medics are somewhat skeptical about the future of cryogenics. In cryonics, bodies are frozen, usually by immersion in liquid nitrogen at -186 degrees Celsius. The hope is that, despite resurrection not being possible in the current day medicine, one day these bodies will be able to be fully restored to life. If so, the first ever frozen human, James Bedford, who was cryogenically frozen in 1967, could wake up over half a century later to a whole new world. In this instance, I believe that we could say he time traveled, in that he would have no sense of the time that had passed between his death and the 60 years that he wakes up in. Okay, so where does this leave us? We discovered the speed of light almost 400 years ago. Since then, we have only made a tiny dent in our time travel capabilities. We may not be able to travel significantly in time, but we can travel. So, in answer to our question, is time travel possible? We have to say yes. Can we use it at our convenience at the moment? Well, no. Do we know how to travel back in time at the moment? No. But if everything we have ever learned up until now means anything, we will know that we don't, as of yet, know all of the answers to the universe, nor have we been able to apply what we do know to our technological benefit. Yet. As NASA continues its investigations and instruments such as the Large Hadron Collider exist to excel particles, I wouldn't write off the possibility just yet. Nor would I dismiss the very real possibility of successful cryogenics. Time travel is possible on a minuscule scale, and one day it may be available on a bigger, more measurable scale. When? We just don't know. Should we seize the opportunity to travel through time even if it were available to us, if it meant never returning to our own time? At this point, it's not for us to say, but it may well make an excellent future episode of Life's Biggest Questions.
Time travel, a popular topic for science fiction novels and films. At this time, we are not capable of it, but theoretically, time travel is possible. According to Paul Davies, the theory of relativity implies that a limited form of time travel is certainly possible, while unrestricted time travel to any epoch, past or future, might just be possible too. So what if, somehow, scientists figured out a way for humans to time travel? How would it affect life as we know it? Today, Life's Biggest Questions asks, what if we could time travel? Hello, and welcome back to LBQ. I'm Charlotte Dobre. If this is your first time on Life's Biggest Questions, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments below what topics you are interested in seeing. We do take suggestions seriously because at the end of the day, we want to make videos that answer questions you have always wanted to ask about life. Before I get into this video, I have a question for you. If you could time travel to any time period, which would you choose? Write your responses in the comments down below. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time travel could be possible through a wormhole. A wormhole could act like a bridge through space-time by connecting two different points with a shortcut. If wormholes do exist, they could technically be made into a time machine. Let's start off by saying that if scientists finally developed a mechanism that allowed them to time travel, not all humans would have access to it. It would likely be extremely expensive for the average person, and one has to consider the fact that being able to time travel could mean that you could change the past, affecting the future. It is likely that world governments would not want to allow just anyone to be able to do this, because if the ability to change the past ended up in the wrong hands, that could have catastrophic consequences. But if the right person traveled to the past, they could theoretically stop certain events from happening. Someone could go back to before the Twin Towers got hit on 9/11 and prevent the planes from even taking off. We could find out for sure who killed John F. Kennedy. Was it Lee Harvey Oswald, or did he act alone? We could go back far enough in time to figure out if Jesus really existed, if Moses really parted the Red Sea. Being able to go back in time to find out the validity of religions could prove extremely problematic. It might mean the complete shutdown of religion if the Bible was proven to be false. Then again, perhaps you could go back in time and witness Jesus Christ rising from the dead. If humans could time travel to the future, they could witness technological advancements, figure out how they work, and bring them back to the present day. A time traveler could go 100 years into the future, find out how to cure cancer, AIDS, or Alzheimer's, and then bring knowledge of that cure back to the present. Being able to time travel to the future would also give us insight into what is going to happen to the Earth, like wars, epidemics, and natural disasters. A time traveler could go into the future to find out how climate change would affect the Earth in the future, and whether or not we could fix the damage being done. Being able to travel to the future would also mean having a leg up when it comes to the stock market. People would know about stocks rising and falling beforehand, allowing them to buy and sell stocks to their advantage. All of these things considered, time travel poses a problem. If you go back in time and change the past, that affects the future. Every event, every action, sets off a different chain of events. The ability to time travel could create a complete mess. As physicist Paul Davies put it, time travel pens a view of the world that is a court of madhouse, where the rational order of things would no longer work. Under those circumstances, it's very hard to see how ordinary human life could continue. Time travel creates a paradox, where if you go back in time to, let's say, kill Hitler to prevent World War II, if you killed Hitler in the past, you wouldn't know who he was in the future, and therefore have no reason to time travel to murder him. Being able to time travel could be extremely dangerous. One misstep and you could tear the fabric of space-time and destroy humanity as we know it. Scientists still don't know for sure if time travel is possible, but thanks to Albert Einstein and his theories of relativity, we know that time slows as moving objects approach the speed of light. So technically, we can already consider ourselves time travelers when we take a flight to a different time zone. That is the only kind of time travel we can currently experience, and maybe that's a good thing.
Hey guys, how's it going? Jared Bronstein here, and welcome to another video here for you on Life's Biggest Questions. Today we'll be answering the question, what if you met a time traveler from the future? Before we do, make sure to subscribe, click that bell icon, and let me know in the comments down below what you'd ask someone from the future. So time travel, is it possible? Wouldn't we all like to know? Unfortunately, as far as we're concerned, it's not. But we don't always know for sure what's going on behind closed doors. Not to say that it is possible, but even if it were, we wouldn't know immediately. I mean, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And having the knowledge to time travel is in fact possible, well, that in itself is quite powerful. So what if you actually met someone from the future? What would that mean for you today? What would that mean for the future? Let's find out. Time travel seems to be an intriguing subject that's been discussed for years. It's been seen in popular movies and TV shows, books, comics, you name it, it's been done. But if you met someone from the future, it wouldn't be all sunshine and rainbows. Although the idea may seem cool, it could actually get you into a lot of trouble. There are so many variables and things we need to look at when talking about time travel, and we will. But for now, let's look at the logistics of it. Time is an interesting thing. More specifically, it's all relative to speed. Einstein was able to figure this out with his famous theory, which truthfully was quite confusing to understand, but I will try my best to put it in simple terms. Time passes at different rates for people moving relative to one another. The effects are only really seen when moving close to the speed of light. An example would be what's called the twin paradox. The idea here is that if you look at a set of twins, had one stay on Earth and one venture out into space on an extremely high-speed spaceship, their time would be different. For what may feel like 5 years to the twin in space, going at extremely high speeds could be 10 or 15 years on Earth. It sounds confusing, and that's because it is. Truthfully, I don't fully understand it myself, but I hope I did it some justice. If you are well informed on the subject, help us all out in the comment section down below. Either way, it seems the only way to travel back in time would be to go faster than the speed of light, which is impossible. Technically speaking, that means time travel forward could be possible, but backwards, not so much. So what does that mean for our time traveler? It's from the future, but traveled back in time from the future. This could mean a few things. Either somehow, some way, it did go faster than the speed of light, something we didn't think was possible, and would require us to completely change almost everything we know about time in general. There's also the possibility it's not human, maybe a different species which is capable of inhumane things. Magic of sorts. Either way, this specimen would be of peak interest to many governments around the world. So for starters, even by coming into contact with this thing, whatever it may be, technically you could be considered a criminal. Now it may sound crazy, you're not doing anything wrong, you simply met a time traveler. But odds are you wouldn't go to the police or government officials, you'd have some questions. Finders keepers, right? Well, the government or law enforcement may not feel the same way, but what they don't know can't hurt them, so let's keep moving along. Say you befriend this time traveler. There are so many questions you could technically ask it. What happens to the world in 10 years? Who will you marry? How do you die? Of course, the time traveler may or may not have the answers you're looking for. We're not talking about a godly figure here, it's a time traveler. It could be a different species altogether, or a future version of someone halfway across the world. It's not necessarily a futuristic version of yourself or your best friend. So to have the notion that you could ask it anything and everything about your personal life, unfortunately probably wouldn't work out in your favor. You'd also have to make the decision what you wanted to do. Out the time traveler to the government? Will they believe you? Or think you're crazy? Do you just move along with your life and pretend it never happened? These are all questions relative to you and you alone. We're all different and make our own choices, so I can't answer that for you. What I can answer though is how the time traveler would change life as we know it. Time travel seems to intrigue so many people over the years, including cosmologist Stephen Hawking, who threw a party for time travelers. The way the party worked, Hawking didn't send out invitations until after the party. His theory was if people did show up to the party without receiving an invitation, they must be time travelers. Although no one showed up, not all hope was lost for Hawking. In his book Brief Answers to the Big Question, Hawking wrote, "Rapid space travel and travel back in time can't be ruled out according to our present understanding. Science fiction fans need not lose heart. There's hope in M-theory. The M-theory suggests our universe could contain 7 hidden dimensions on top of the 4 dimensions of space-time, which are length, width, height, and time. Now, if it were possible to go forward in time, and clearly it's possible to go back in time, according to your new time-traveling friend, what would that mean for the rest of the world? It could be quite scary. Remember what I was saying with great power comes great responsibility? Well, think of it like this. Everything is the way it currently is right now as you sit and watch this video because of what previously happened in the past. If every single one of those things, from the catastrophic events like the Ice Age, all the way to the time you stubbed your toe 3 months ago, if all of those things hadn't happened, you wouldn't be where you currently are. It sounds quite convoluted, but it's true. Meaning, for the time traveler, by traveling back in time, he may actually be changing his future. This is something that would need to be taken into consideration for anyone time traveling. And although maybe only the time traveler would notice a difference from their old world to their new one, post-time travel, nothing would ever be the same as it once was. But to say that anyone and everyone could time travel wouldn't be very realistic if someone were to meet a time traveler. What would seem to be the most important information of all was how they did it. Was it a time machine? Was it a machine that allowed them to bend space and time? Or do they physically have some sort of power that allows them to do so? Meeting a time traveler would change everything we know about science and everything as we know it, really. Would you take the chance of traveling to the future with the risk that you may not be able to get back to the exact time you left? It seems like a confusing idea to get around, but really think about it. If you traveled forward 5 or 10 years from this exact moment, how would you be able to travel back to the exact same time you originally left? In the time it took you to go 5 or 10 years into the future, it might be 20 or 30 years time on Earth. Everything would be older. Your family and friends, the Earth itself, literally everything. But you would only be 5 or 10 years older compared to when you originally left. Unfortunately, if you were to meet a time traveler, you'd have a lot of questions to answer for yourself. Of them, most importantly, you'd have to ask yourself if you're willing to risk your entire life possibly seeing the future, or if you'll just notify the authorities and let them deal with it however they feel is appropriate. As big of a life or death question as it may be, you can continue pondering it for as long as you'd like because it's all in good fun. As far as we understand, time travel is simply not possible. Unless one can travel the speed of light or faster, which is impossible, then time travel will never be a realistic idea. Yet things have changed in the past and will continue to change as we do more research. So maybe one day time travel will be possible. Who knows?
Humans on a mass scale have been fascinated with time travel since the Industrial Revolution. Something about them moving backwards and forwards through time has fascinated us. But so far as we know, time travel is the stuff of fiction, best experienced in movies like Back to the Future. Some think time travel will one day be possible, but if so, why haven't we come across any evidence of it? Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, the channel that likes to answer a breadth of questions on topics like history, politics, science, and space and pop culture. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today I'm asking, why haven't we met time travelers yet? Before we fly through this video, I just want to ask you guys to hit that thumbs up button if you like our content. Also, let us know which era you want to travel to if you had the choice. I'm torn between going back to see the dinosaurs or experiencing the swinging 60s. Let me know where you would go in the comment section down below. Also, if you're a time traveler and you're watching this, make yourself known. Okay, time travelers. Where are they? Widespread human fascination with time travel came after the Industrial Revolution, when eras stopped spanning hundreds of years but started spanning decades instead. Prior to the revolution, people could expect their lives to be reasonably similar to that of their parents and their grandparents. Change was slower, and if there was any fascination with history, it would be over lengthier periods of time. Now though, my mum's childhood in the 70s or my grandparents' lives during World War II, much more appealing and historically loaded and far removed from the life I'm living today. Since the space revolution, scientists have been theorizing and working towards ways in which we can travel through time. At the moment, traveling through time with ease doesn't work with our Earth laws of physics. However, it is speculated that once we master the ability to travel at the speed of light, we might have a fighting chance. Sadly, we're some way off that being a reality yet. Professor Stephen Hawking, amongst other big brains out there, theorized that we may be able to manipulate wormholes to travel through time too, but of course, we haven't come across any that we have the ability to travel through yet. All that being said, there was a time when humans hadn't yet invented the wheel or the internal combustion engine. In ancient civilizations, nobody would have conceived of the fast, effective plane travel that we have today, or the fact that one day the man might be able to walk on the moon. Just because we can't time travel today doesn't necessarily mean that we won't be able to. So that being said, if we assume that humans do get to that point where we can time travel, where on earth are all of the time travelers? Professor Stephen Hawking famously held a party for time travelers on June the 28th, 2009. He had canapes, cocktails, and flutes of champagne ready. He also had balloons and a big banner saying, "Welcome, time travelers." Of course, no time travel experiment would be complete without mailing the invites after the event in question, which is exactly what he did. You guessed it, nobody showed up, and all that beautiful Krug champagne went undrunk. Does this mean that time travelers do not exist? Or Are they avoiding us? There are three possibilities as to what might be going on here and why nobody attended Professor Hawking's party. The first one is pretty sad, and that is that time travelers do not exist because humans never managed to crack the space-time continuum. They never managed to invent time travel. Something on Earth or in space kills us off before we ever get there. What a buzzkill. The second is that perhaps we're living through the first ever time. To believe in time travel is to either wildly suspend disbelief, disregard paradoxes, or to believe that there may be parallel universes existing side by side that could allow for a future, a past, and a present to somehow exist together that can be traveled between. Although this would open a wider can of worms about cause and effect and whether changing something would eradicate the outcome that led you to going back in time in the first place. Mind-boggling, I agree. So let's just stick a pin in that for a second. If parallel universes do exist, and this is the first time that we're living through history and we've not yet built a time machine, then how can we expect to see any time travelers? Offering a similar angle, Hawking's mate Kip Thorne wrote a great book called Black Holes and Time Warps. In this, he said the most feasible way of time traveling would be manipulating wormholes. However, he adds this would only allow people in the future to travel back as far as the invention of the time machine itself, and as that isn't yet, we wouldn't see any time travelers today. The third possibility? We have encountered time travelers, we just don't know it. Perhaps time travelers are being careful to leave no traces for fear of creating irreparable paradoxes. Some even argue that we have met them, we just aren't publicly accepting it. Recently, a man called Noah made worldwide headlines when he claimed to be a professional time traveler from the year 2030. Amongst other things, he says he's had a device in his hand that helps him time travel, which an X-ray does seem to back up. Similarly, a Greek man claimed that he was shot through time to the year 3207 as part of a secret military experiment. He said that buildings were huge, the grass was a weird new color, and that people flew in cars and lived among big animals and robots. Cool. Head on over to YouTube, you'll find dozens of semi-convincing videos of conversations with alleged time travelers. In 2016, archaeologists dug up an object that looked like a 2000s era mobile phone, like spookily like one. Again, there is allegedly a time traveler talking on a phone to someone in Charlie Chaplin's 1928 movie The Circus. The hipster on the bridge in 1948. What's he up to? Some people even claim that Vladimir Putin is a time traveler. Are these hoaxes, or are there really time travelers out there already? Or do you think that the lack of steadfast proof means that there are no time travelers yet? Do you think there ever will be? Do you believe in parallel universes? I have so many questions, which means it's probably time to end this one.
Here's a question for you. What point in history would you travel back to if our civilization had the technology to traverse the cosmic stream of time and space? Would it be a trip to the construction of the Great Pyramids of Giza to see just exactly what was going on? Or would you swing on by the height of European high society and spend your days drinking wine at masquerade balls? Well, the fiction of science has long speculated the implications of time travel, but the actual function of science has been fervently opposed to the mechanics of the idea. But technically speaking, could we travel through time and space? And more importantly, do the impossibly strange mechanics of black holes have something to do with it? Let's find out. Hello internet, what's going on? And once again, welcome back to the most inquisitive channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions. As per usual, I'll be your disembodied floating voice, Jack Finch, as today we curiously ask the question, are spinning black holes the key to time travel? Before we get into the whole black hole timey-wimey hypothesis, first we need to confront the question, is time travel even possible? Well, in actual fact, traveling forwards in time is already surprisingly easy. There you go, a second just passed. We're in the future. Oh, it happened again. But of course I'm talking theoretically, and it's thanks to Einstein's super special theory of relativity, which when applied to the passage of time, describes the fact that time passes at different rates for people who are moving relative to one another. However, that effect only becomes large enough to even notice the closer you get to the speed of light. Okay, remember that part because the speed of light is incredibly important in this equation. In the words of Einstein himself, the universe has a speed limit, and that speed limit is the speed of light, as in nothing can travel faster than 300,000 kilometers per second due to the fact that it would take an infinite amount of energy to do so, and thus the cosmic speed limit is dictated by the fastest possible occurrence difference of energy, light speed. Now let's lay down a little thought experiment with that in mind. Imagine our planet, and in a perfect circumference is a train track that spans the entire width of Earth. Through immeasurable amounts of energy, our civilization has managed to power this train to travel at a level just a tiny fraction below that of the speed of light. Of course, that would never happen, but come on, this is a thought experiment. Now imagine on that train people are sat comfortably in their carriages, watching the Earth buzz by at just below 300,000 kilometers per second. But then suddenly a little girl on the carriage jumps up out of her seat and runs down the width of the train. Oh no, she's moving at a certain speed. Does that mean her speed is added to the speed of the train and suddenly she's traveling at faster than the speed of light? Does she disappear from time and space in a bright burst of cosmic time stuff? Well, no, of course not. Because as far as she's concerned, Einstein's theory of relativity is in action. Time passes at different rates for people who are moving relative to one another, and her father gets up out of his seat and calls her back, "Stop running on that train, you'll trip over," or something like that. And then everyone lives happily ever after. However, there is something more to it, because if you were observing this train from outside, you would see a vessel passing before your eyes at just below the speed of light, circling the planet at roughly 7 times per second. And what you'd be witnessing is theoretical time travel, as everything that happened on the train would appear to be in slow motion, as the rest of the planet experienced hundreds of years relative to perhaps just a week on board the train. All it takes is something really, really fast spinning at near the speed of light. And you know what else functions in a similar manner, where time dilates in a reminiscent fashion to our super train? Black holes, guys. Black holes that spin really, really fast. Now, of course, black holes are an enigma of physics, so the following speculation should be taken with a pinch of critical thinking, but it appears that black holes as portals aren't as science fiction-y as first thought. It has long been the consensus that falling through a black hole would be a very terrible thing, given the fact that the unfathomable cosmic force of its singularity tends to obliterate all matter into a spiral of spaghetti. But what has recently came to light is that all black holes aren't created equally, and some of them have some incredibly exciting properties if you're in the business of traversing time and space. For the vast majority of black holes, their singularity is so hot and dense that any vessel passing through it would be tidally stretched and squeezed and then subsequently vaporized. But for a supermassive black hole like Sagittarius A star, which is located at the center of our own galaxy, things are a little bit different. And it's thanks to its massive size and relatively stable rotation that the effects of traveling past its event horizon have been recently theorized to be very small, if not incredibly negligible. In fact, any spacecraft and individuals on board would perhaps not even detect the aforementioned cosmic chaos and slip safely past its event horizon to bravely go where no one has gone before. But what's exactly down there? What would we even be descending into? Black holes are dead stars that have punched a hole in the fabric of space-time by overcoming gravity itself, and their theoretical center, the singularity, is purely a mathematical absolution. It is dimensionless, where it has no place for matter or density of any kind. Is it condensed dark energy? Is it antimatter? That would be really bad. Is it the opposite end of a theoretical white hole punched into our perceived side of space-time? You see, theoretically speaking, actually breaching a black hole's event horizon is possible, but what we'd be hurtling towards, that's anyone's guess entirely. The gravitational singularity of a black hole is a one-dimensional point in space-time which contains a huge mass in an infinitesimally small space, where both density and gravity become theoretically infinite and space-time curves into infinity and beyond, and where the laws of physics as we know them cease to operate. Could it be an unknown scientific function that moves really fast, much like the mechanics of our time travel train? Possibly. Because in the words of Kip Thorne, the singularity is the one point where all laws of physics break down. And we have to approach this hypothetical notion with a certain degree of humility, because we don't know. Are spinning black holes the key to time travel? We don't know. They could be in certain specific scenarios, or they could be the matter-destroying cosmic maws that we fear them to be. To understand the singularity of a black hole also means to understand the beginning of time itself.